So you may just have to press got it and we will start. Okay, so thank you for showing an interest in the organic food seminar. Just so I can get a little grasp of what's happening here. So has anyone tried organic food? If you've got access to the chat, if you could just let me know, have you tried organic food before? Lisa's yes, cool. Cool, Dominic's yes, Maria's a yes, Scott yes. Okay, cool. So Jasmine is trying to do it. No worries, Joe. Thanks for letting us know you're trying to dial in. Thanks for joining, Liam. Have you ever just in the chat, people are typing if they've ever tried organic food before. Thanks, Moni. Appreciate it. If you've ever tried organic food before. Now, if you've tried organic food, was there any kind of like, do you think it tasted better? Do you think you felt better on it? Did it taste worse? Like, what do you think? Like, let me know your honest feedback on organic food and your experience.
I personally find that growing organic food, the more live it can be, the better it is. I feel it's yeah.
Yeah, good point. Yeah. So look, the more live it is, the more enzyme rich it is. So yeah, it'll be more nutritious as well. Jasmina says it tastes better. And Dominic says richer flavor. Scott says, yeah, more flavorsome and better energy levels. Okay, awesome. So basically positive. Moni's got a veggie patch. Nice work, Moni. And Maria loves the flavor. Okay, cool. So most people are sort of acknowledging that, feel better, taste better, which is great. Okay. So we're going to go through some concepts. So just to let you know, I've personally started buying organic in about 2010. And, it's a little bit of a process. After this seminar, I don't necessarily expect anyone to just go completely organic straight away. It can take a little bit of commitment. And the reason I say that is some of the things I'm going to go through today might actually scare you a little bit. But, just take it in its stride. We're looking for progress here, not perfection. So, I started buying organic, like I said, in 2010. Probably took me 2 years to transition to mostly organic in the house. And then I've started working more. I resigned from the finance industry in 2014. Moved back to Brisbane 2015, and since then, been like probably 90% organic. The only time I'm not is when I eat out and about. So it can take a little bit of time. So for me, it started with organic eggs and then just slowly bringing in some things. And this day and age, it's actually a little bit easier to source as well than it was 13 years ago. Okay, so I'm going to bring up a presentation, and I'm actually really excited to bring you this information. And like I said, don't want it to scare anybody. There's going to be some good solutions in there as well. Okay, so I'm going to try my Zoom skills out. Cool, we're good. Can people see the screen? I don't know if Maria, can you just nod? I can see you, or Lisa. Cool. Okay, I can see you both. Okay, great. Okay, so the name of the seminar is Why I Choose Organic Food. Okay, so what we're going to go through today is, what is organic food? Okay, so the definition of it. We're going to go through the nutrition quality. So is there any difference in organic food? We're going to go through environmental impacts. And some of this can be, for concern. Is it scalable? Is a common question I get. So we're going to look through that. We're going to look at price comparisons and try and come up with some solutions. And I'm just going to offer some tips to heal in case, you're eating all organic, you don't really know what's happening, and you still can't quite get it right. So I just thought I'd provide some quick tips at the end. Okay. So what is organic food? Okay, so organic food actually is defined by our Department of Agriculture. Okay, so this is here in Australia. So there's a standard called the National Standard for Organic and Biodynamic Produce, and it has to abide by certain standards. So in conventional farming, chemical fertilizers are used. Now, these chemical fertilizers are normally loaded with things like nitrogen, phosphorus, methane. They can emit carbon dioxide. And why they're used is to help the plants grow stronger. Okay, so it can be, there are some advantages from a farming perspective. It can actually make the plants grow faster. You get quicker results. But that can come at a sacrifice, and we will go through that. So, the sacrifice can be soil quality, as an example. And if the soil quality starts going down or dissipating, then you need more and more chemical fertilizers. Okay. So chemical fertilizers are used in organic farming, conventional farming, and then organic fertilizers are used in organic farming. So things like, essentially like plant and animal remains. Okay. And that's how they get their nutrients. So, a little bit more labor intensive, but I personally think a lot better quality. And if the soil's really good, you can start to fertilize less as well. Okay. And then we've got insecticides. So you would have heard the word pesticides before. So pesticides encompasses, basically all the different sides. So you got pesticides sort of on the top, and then you've got insecticide coming off one branch, and you got herbicides coming off the other branch. Okay. So insecticides are used to essentially kill what it says, insects. Okay. Now they kind of come in two forms. They can be neurotoxic, or they can be, they can really affect the nervous system of the animal, which ends up killing it, or they can be what they call endocrine disruptors, so really disrupt the hormonal system. Okay, so that's what is sprayed to keep the pests away or to keep the insects away. So, theoretically to protect the produce. What organic farming does is they don't use insecticides. They'll use things like, they'll strategize around releasing certain animals to manage the insects. Okay. So what I say, releasing beneficial animals. Okay. So it just helps really manage insects. They have a full cycle going on of, animals that can use other insects as prey. And then organic farms, some of them also use traps as well. Now, herbicides is essentially what it says, which is killing off different plants around the crop. And there's a few well-known herbicides, and I'll talk to them a little bit later, but one is called glyphosate, which is a chemical in a well-known herbicide called Roundup. And there's another herbicide called atrazine, which I'll probably go into a little bit more detail later. Okay, so this is sort of keep the surrounding plants at bay. Okay, now organic farming will generally use techniques like rotating their crops. Okay, so growing different things. So essentially not allowing for the weeds to grow. They'll use concepts called tilling, which is essentially just turning the soil over, so slightly more labor intensive. And then they can also use mulch as well. Now, like I'm not a gardener by trade, but I have actually worked with an organic gardener before. And what she taught me is that weeds actually provide nutrients to the soil, and I have checked this, okay? So weeds they're not a mistake by nature, okay? They provide nutrients to the soil. And in fact, some weeds can actually show you, what is the soil in particularly deficient in. So different weeds can tell you different things. So this is what organic farming versus conventional farming. Now, finally, we've got genetically modified plant foods. So there's only 4 vegetables, I believe, or 4 plant foods that are genetically modified in Australia, or farm genetically modified. And they are, off the top of my head, and they are cotton, or cotton-based oil. They are canola, they are sunflower, and Indian mustard. Okay. So if a food is genetically modified, it's supposed to be marked genetically modified. So you just got to look out for that. Australia does import genetically modified foods. So we import soy, corn, potatoes, and potentially wheat down the track. So again, it's supposed to be marked that way. Now, organic farming in Australia prohibits genetic modification, in any way, shape, or form. Okay, so that's just the difference on the plant food side between conventional farming and organic farming. So the difference on conventional farming versus organic farming with animal food is, conventional farming can use medication, they'll use synthetic hormones, and they can also use genetically modified feed. Okay. Now, I'm going to talk about the side effects of all this later, but interestingly, if the livestock is fed genetically modified food, the butchers or so forth don't need to disclose that that animal food has been eating genetically modified food. They don't actually have to disclose that, because theoretically, according to our standards, that the animal's not genetically modified, the food is. So that's in conventional farming. Okay. Organic farming just relies on a suitable diet for people, for the animals, a favorable environment. So theoretically just really supporting their immune system. They're living the way they were evolutionary consistent, and then the humane treatment of animals as well. Cool. So I probably should say, if anyone's got any questions, feel free to punch them in. I'm not sure if I'll see them in the current setup I've got, but you can open up your screen, ask any questions you like, and we can also ask questions at the end as well. Okay, so our Department of Agriculture recognizes more or less 5 different certification in Australia. So there's Australian Certified Organic, there's the NASAA, which I believe is based in South Australia. We got SX Certified Organic, and then we've got Certified Organic Australia. And then finally, in the bottom right, we've got Demeter, which is a biodynamic label. So the 4 in the color, that's all certified organic. So, they inspect the farms, and then they use their certification to say, hey, look, these guys are above board. I've seen stats around about 70% of organic food is certified by the one in the top left. And then we've got the biodynamic thing in the bottom right. Okay, so biodynamic is it's kind of like regenerative farming, which is kind of increased in popularity lately. Has anyone seen the movie? I think it's called Kiss the Ground. Has anyone seen the movie Kiss the Ground on Netflix? Just punch it into the chat. Has anyone seen the movie Kiss the Ground, where they talk about regenerative farming? So Maria's a no. Liam's a yes. Okay, good on you, Liam. So there's a movie on Netflix, and feel free to keep responding if you like. Dominic's a no. So there's a movie on Netflix called Kiss the Ground. Thanks, Jasmina. Which basically shows the concept of regenerative farming. So it's, the animals working in with the plants, and it all working in a nice synergistic cycle. Now, biodynamic goes one step further, and it actually uses an astrological calendar for the livestock and the plantation. Now, that concept was developed in the 1920s by a guy called Dr. Rudolf Steiner, who was, when you read some of his work, he was probably a genius. So not only in agriculture, but things like philosophy and psychology and so forth. Okay. So these are the certifications to look out for Australia. Now, the American system is actually quite a bit more complicated. Lots of different corporations own different certifications, but here in Australia, it's a lot less complicated, which is awesome. Okay, so we've sort of spoke about what organic food is, and now I actually want to go into the nutrition component, okay? So what do we know about nutrition? Well, the research shows probably not much, in all honesty. So our national databases currently track around about 150 key components. So most people have heard of protein, carbohydrate, fat. So that would be kind of like 3 key components. They're broken down into different subcategories, and they're broken down. And so a lot of different national databases monitor about 150 of those. When the studies are done, that's what they're generally done on, okay? But research shows that, there's more than 26,000 different biochemicals present in our food. So it's very difficult to monitor, how much, what we're doing nutritionally. So that's why I think it's personally really great to get back to nature and do what's been evolutionary consistent rather than meddle with it too much. So there was a guy called Dr. Weston Price that traveled the world, and for people that know me, they know I may have spoken about him before. He traveled the world in the 30s and the 40s. This is back in the 30s and the 40s, okay? And he was living amongst tribes. And what he actually found, and basically everything in the 30s and 40s was almost organic back then, right? There was a little bit of chemical around, but not much. What he found was the foods he found in amongst the tribes, so out in the wilderness in the wild land, was the vitamins and minerals were 4 to 10 times the quantity in wild caught foods compared to farms. So when we hear about berries that are really high in vitamin C that are in the Amazon or in the Northern Territory or so forth, I personally think a lot of that is just because they're out in nature. It's very synergistic with nature, and they're just getting a high vitamin and mineral content. So that's back in the 30s and 40s. So you kind of think, hey, look, we kind of started deviating back in the 30s and the 40s, and then we've deviated again. Okay. So has anyone ever heard that a lettuce had more nutrients 50 years ago than it did compared to today? Has anyone heard that stat, like lettuce or spinach or whatever it might be? And just throw it in the chat. I'd be interested to know. Maria's a yes. Cool. Anyone else heard it all? So has anyone heard, hey, look, spinach had, more iron 50 years ago, whatever it might be? Judas, a yes. Yeah. Okay, cool. So a few people heard that. Yeah, Liam say I've heard someone say that. Yeah. Okay, awesome. Yeah, Monty's heard it as well. Great. Okay. So there's a research paper, and I provide the reference there. That's called PubMed. So it's quite a well-known research database. And there's the research paper there that shows that between 1963 and 1992 in the US, amongst 13 different fruits and vegetables, calcium has declined in amongst 13 different fruits and vegetables. Calcium has declined by 29%. Okay. And that's up until 1992. Magnesium has declined by 21%. And I couldn't count how many times people have said, hey, look, I think I'm low on magnesium. I need to take a magnesium supplement. And a lot of that could be the quality of our food today. And then we've got iron's down 32%. Okay. So that's a pretty big swing. And that's up until 1992. Now, as we look at the UK, the study's a little bit more extensive. 20 fruits and 20 veggies. Calcium's down 19%, magnesium's down 35%, and iron's down 22%. Okay. So, potentially our farming practices have moved away from what they're supposed to be. Potentially the soil quality's changed. Things are moving around. Okay. Yeah, thanks, Monty, for the feedback. Yeah, it is a bit scary. I'll show you some more scary stuff. Okay, and so this is a study that was done in 2001 by a lady called Virginia Worthington. Okay, and what she did, I actually only included a few categories. She actually did have more categories in her paper. But we've got here the difference. So in vitamin C, lettuce up 17%. This is the difference between conventional and organically farmed foods. Okay. This is very clear difference between conventional and organically farmed foods. So lettuce up 17%, spinach up 52%, carrot actually down 6%, which is interesting. Potato up 22%, and cabbage up 43% in vitamin C. Now, I don't know if anyone likes sauerkraut, but sauerkraut is exceptionally high in vitamin C, even more than cabbage. So it's a great source of vitamin C. So what does vitamin C do for us? So vitamin C is excellent to support our immune system. It helps with iron production and also collagen production as well, which can help with your hair and skin and nails and so forth. Okay. Has anyone tried sauerkraut? Some people throw me out the window when I recommend sauerkraut. Let's have a look here.
Definitely And love it. And I thought too, vitamin C is also really good for supporting people with stress. That's
Okay,
my
cool.
experience.
Yeah. I actually hadn't heard that, to be honest,
Cool.
but yeah, thank you for the feedback. Appreciate it. So Liam's a no, so everyone's a yes. People love it. Most people love it. Okay, cool. And Judith says, yes, it's disgusting. Excellent. I know Judith pretty well, and I know that's the sort of comment she would make. Cool, thanks, Judith. Okay, cool. And then we've got lettuce. So iron. Okay, so iron is excellent for blood production, excellent to support our immune system, really good for supporting our neurotransmitters. So it's a precursor to something called serotonin, which is like our happy hormone. So really, really vital. Okay, so the veggies around that, really high in iron and generally pretty high in magnesium as well, except spinach actually. And I just wanted to report it accurately what the study said. So that was slightly lower. You can see there, even carrot, up 69% for magnesium, cabbage up 40% for magnesium. So magnesium is a muscle relaxant, really good for heart health, really good for blood pressure as well. Okay, so that's the nutritional differences in plant food. Now we're going to go with animal food. Okay, so there was a study done, or some research done, I should say, by a magazine called Mother News in 2007. So they went around to 14 different farms and collected the eggs. So 14 different pasture-fed farms. So that's out in the fields, out eating grass, out eating worms, and so forth. Okay. And that's what we'd call, they classified that as free range. They didn't actually call that organic, even though it sort of sounded like organic, but they called it free range. And then they compared it to caged eggs. And there was significant differences in nutritional quality, okay? So in vitamin A, almost double, and vitamin A is really good for our immune system and supporting our vision. I'm going to skip to vitamin E. So vitamin E, higher in vitamin E. Okay, so vitamin E is a natural antioxidant, really good for cleaning up damage in the body. Okay, and then they had triple the amount of omega-3s. Omega-3 is really good for reducing inflammation, supporting vision, and even brain health. Now, vitamin D was a different bit of research, and I've got the number there. And what they actually, and this makes sense. So vitamin D is synthesized in the presence of sunlight. And so these free range eggs had a lot more vitamin D than the caged eggs. So, and vitamin D, like I said, is synthesized in the presence of sunlight, and also helps support things like our immune system, our moods, helps strengthen our bones. So it's a really, really important one. Okay, so we spoke about the nutritional quality, which, there's even some research out there to say there's not much difference, and that's okay. I'm open to seeing that research. I can't find much, but this is some research that I've found that I thought I'd present you today. Okay. Now, chemical fertilizers are sprayed on the food. They also can just be like, I'm not sure what the word is, but they're like in those little pellet chemical forms, and they can go onto the, just sprayed out to the soil. So the potential side effects for humans are, nausea, shortness of breath, irritation of nose, throat, gut. And there's some things I haven't written there because I don't want to scare people too much, but there are some side effects. Insecticides, side effects would be seizures, headaches, asthma. And then herbicides, we've got gut bacteria, different neurological disorders such as Parkinson's, infertility, and non-Hodgkin lymphoma. So I will zero in on the herbicides. So first of all, it's been shown to disrupt our gut bacteria, so what they call our gut microbiome. And there's a particular herbicide used here in Australia called atrazine. Okay, so atrazine was banned in the EU in the year 2003. Okay, but they still use it in the US and in Australia. So atrazine has been shown to lower sperm count in males. And the University of Berkeley did a really interesting study on atrazine, where they tested it with frogs, and the frogs, 75% of the frogs, their testosterone completely tanked, and they essentially call these frogs castrated. And interestingly, 10% of those frogs actually changed sex. So they changed from male to female just due to the tanking of their testosterone. And what I said before is that herbicides can be hormonal disruptors. So 10% of the frogs actually changed sex, and I think even had the ability to lay eggs. So it can really mess up the hormonal system. And then there's something called non-Hodgkin lymphoma, which is a type of cancer. So glyphosate, which is the main chemical in Roundup, has been linked with non-Hodgkin lymphoma. I think it was in the year 2020, there was a court case where it was proven in a court of law that glyphosate is linked with non-Hodgkin lymphoma. And so the owner of that chemical, Bayer/Monsanto, had to pay out Australian equivalent, Australian dollars, $15 billion to about 95,000 different claims. So pretty scary, and it's going to get a little bit scary the next couple of slides, but then hopefully we come up with some solutions. And like I said, it's a process. On the flip side, our authorities, assure us that it's not in heavy doses and it shouldn't be too toxic, but there are linked side effects as well. Okay. And now we talk about nutritional quality with animal based. So the medications that are given in conventional farms, so the potential side effects to humans are basically anything that is linked to medications. Okay, so if you ever want to check your potential side effects of medications, you can go on to www.drugs.com. The real one that's been studied quite a lot is actually antibiotic resistance. So conventional farming will give antibiotics to the livestock to try and help them not get sick at all. Now, the problem with that is, we consume essentially those antibiotics, and then human beings can start to build up a resistance to antibiotics. And antibiotic resistance is a fairly known problem now. Now, that may be as a result of conventional farming, may also be as a result of people taking lots of antibiotics, okay, and then the bacteria just evolving around that. So there's some side effects there. And then they also pump the animals with synthetic hormones. This can lead to things like tiredness, hot flashes, mood changes, weight gain, sweating, and weak bones. Now, the synthetic hormones that they use are things like estrogen, or different types of estrogen. So estrogen is known to really throw on weight, okay? So they will pump the livestock with estrogen. They'll also pump the livestock with testosterone to just help it grow faster, and other growth promoters as well. Now, in Australia, we've got a fairly good global reputation for treating our livestock pretty well. I'm just telling you what is able to be done in conventional farming. I'm not necessarily saying it happens everywhere. I've spoken to local butchers that aren't certified organic, and they have assured me that, hey, look, we try and reduce these kind of things. Okay. Okay, cool. So we'll now look at environmental impacts. Okay. So this can get a little bit scary on the plant food side. Okay, so at the moment, there's 195 million tons of chemical fertilizers used worldwide per year. That is a lot. And if my math is correct, it's about 195 billion kilograms of chemical fertilizer used per year. Okay. So that's from Statistica. So the fertilizers can decrease our soil quality. So they're loaded with nitrogen. It can throw off the pH balance and make it a little bit more acidic. So it can really decrease our soil quality. It actually also can trigger the release of greenhouse gases. So, there's nitrogen, there's methane, there's carbon dioxide in there, and that can be released as greenhouse gases, which have been linked with, influencing the temperature on the planet. We spoke about human health, so things around nausea, irritable in the gut and so forth. And this one's quite a sad one. So there's something called dead zones in the ocean, and I'm going to bring up a photo of in the Gulf of Mexico, okay? So dead zones, if you can kind of think of fertilizers are, like extreme growth promoters for our plants, okay? It's like steroids for our plants. So the fertilizers can then, they go off in water runoff into our waterways, and what they actually do is they promote the growth of algae and different plants in the sea. So it can become very dense near farming areas, and it actually chokes out the sea life in that area. It actually, the oxygen becomes less, and the sea life starts, well, it just can't survive in there. So the Gulf of Mexico is one of the largest dead zones we know about. I believe there are some in Australia, but it's one of the, it's a byproduct of chemical fertilizers, which is, I personally think can be quite damaging. Okay, so that's fertilizers. We're going to move on to pesticides, okay? So there's 3.5 billion kilograms of pesticides used worldwide per year. It's around about a $45 billion industry, okay? So there's a lot of money to be made from it as well. And we'll go through some of the impacts on the planet. So it can decrease general biodiversity in the soil. So what does that mean? So our soil, a really healthy soil is made up of microorganisms and humus, okay? So the humus is actually just like the remains of natural components, so like of animals and plants. And it's that, really beautiful, dark kind of soil that just feels so rich. Does everyone kind of know what I'm talking about? Just punch it in the chat. Does everyone kind of know what I'm talking about when I'm talking about humus? Yep. Most people got it. Yep. Cool. Good on you. Yep. Liam, I'm sure you do. Liam's a gardener by trade. Yep. Judith knows. Judith's in the garden a fair bit. Thanks, Jasmina. Yep. Awesome. So the pesticides have been shown to decrease, really affect the level of humus in the soil, and also the microorganisms in the soil, which help feed our plants. Okay. Now, the humus is excellent at retaining water in the soil, and organic farms have been shown to be a lot more drought resistant. Okay. So it can hold water a lot better, and potentially even help just regulating the temperature on the planet a lot better as well. So kind of all life kind of starts in the soil. Now, so I spoke about the decreases ability of soil to hold water. Okay. And like I said, some parts are a little bit scary, okay? So, it's pesticides. Pesticides are designed to kill animals. So what do? I couldn't get any stats on insects, what insects they actually kill, how much they do. There is evidence to show that they kill bees, and bees, pollinate our fruit and veg. So that's a little bit scary. But one official stat I could find is that, the US Fish and Wildlife Service estimates that 72 million birds are killed by pesticides in the United States each year. Okay. So they're choking on the pesticides, which is, a pretty crazy stat. It's also been linked with 11,000 unintentional human deaths per year. Okay. So what does that mean? There are incidences of people taking pesticides on purpose, as attempt of self-harm. That's not what this stat includes. This stat includes just unintentional, okay? So that may be breathing it in, that may be farming or so forth, working on the farms and so forth. And interestingly, you can even see that this guy's pretty covered up when he's spraying pesticides. Now, like I said, I don't want anyone to panic too much. We're looking for just progress here, not perfection. So, our authorities assure us that it's not at a high level, that, humans can generally handle it. But the more we move to organic, I personally think the better. Okay, this one, this opinion might be in the slightly controversial category. I've had people not agree with it. That's perfectly fine. I thought I'd just sort of present my point of view, and you're welcome to do your own research on it as well. So there's a theory that maybe cows contribute to climate change. And I don't know if that's the case. I don't think that's the case. There's some really good research to show that it doesn't. And I'll provide a couple of examples. So there's research to show that, in Tanzania, they've actually gone to a forest area where there's lots of animals, and they've found that they've had the same environmental impact as, the local farm in Tanzania with the animals. So it's like, in my personal view, there were probably a lot more animals than thousands of years ago than there are now, roaming the land. And we weren't talking about climate change back then. So it's kind of like, this is just a natural thing that happens. The University of Michigan conducted a 4-year study, which actually showed that cows actually have a net benefit to the environment. I'm going to explain how that happens. And there's actually been other research to show that as well. So it's happened by the University of Michigan. There was a university in Spain that recently showed that. And there's a well-known farm called, I think it's called White Oak Pastures in the US, and they had an independent audit, and that showed that their farming actually showed a net benefit to the environment. So I'll explain how that actually happens, or my opinion. And like I said, some people may disagree with me. So this chart is from the Global Food Justice Alliance. They got some good information on their website. So basically, the greenhouse gas as we know it, we've got ancient carbon, and hopefully you can see my mouse. We've got ancient carbon in the soil, and this is taken up to the factory, converted into carbon dioxide and methane, which basically, what we are told floats around the planet. And then that's even disputed as well. Now, with cows, they belch, burp, fart methane. That is converted to CO2, but it's debated that this is a different kind of methane, what they call like a biogenic methane. Whereas the other one is a thermogenic methane, happened through burning. This one's biogenic, happening through nature. So this methane facilitates some CO2, carbon dioxide, and also H2O, so water. So it actually facilitates the rain cycle, okay? So it facilitates the rain cycle. The carbon dioxide is used by the plants, and then actually the carbon is then sequestered or put into the soil, okay, and used by nature. So like I said, there's research to show that cows can actually have a net benefit on the environment, although it's debated, and that's just my personal view. You're welcome to check it out. Okay, so we spoke about what is organic, the nutrition quality, environmental impacts, and whether it is scalable, okay? So worldwide organic food sales were $18 billion in the year 2000, and now they're $132 billion, okay? So it's increased 7-fold, which I think is awesome. It's been able to sustain it. It's pretty awesome. So there's good news. Currently, our population is 8.1 billion people, projected to be 10 billion people by 2050. So can we do it? That's always a question. That's been a question really since I know it was a big topic in the 60s that I read about. So, can we do it? Organic food sales have increased 7-fold. We'll see. There is an issue with food wastage, though, and I was quite surprised to see this stat. Okay, so in Australia, the average household wastes about 4 kilograms of food per week. Now, I thought that was fairly exaggerated, and that's actually a government website. That's a Queensland government website. And I get the sense they're probably talking about food scraps as well. So, in my view, food scraps can be used quite effectively. They can be used in your garden. They can be used for compost and put back in the soil. The amount of land used to grow wasted food in Australia covers more than 25 million hectares. So that's larger than Victoria. So that's how much we throw out per year. So about a landmass larger than Victoria. So quite a lot. So just being mindful of what we're throwing out. Now, organic food, most people comment that it actually lasts a little bit longer. So that may actually help the wastage as well. So this is a study done by, hey, look, is organic farming sustainable? Okay. So this is a study done in organic agriculture in the 21st century, published in Nature Plants. So I'll start here. So we've got yield. So this is probably the only negative one. So this particular research showed, hey, look, yield is a little bit better in conventional and a little bit less in organic. So he said the author said there was around about a 10 to 20% difference. Okay. Now, I personally think over the long term, we're probably better off going organic just based on helping out the soil quality. Now, and as it shows here, the next one, soil quality in the blue in conventional is a lot lower than the soil quality in the organic. Okay. And then as we go around, we've got minimized energy use. So conventional wasn't quite as good at energy use. Organic was better at not using much energy. Okay. So if you think about a lot of organic sold locally, so less traveling, a lot of organic livestock is just out in the farm, so not under sheds and so forth, so losing less energy. Biodiversity was better in organic compared to conventional. Water pollution was better in organic. Profitability was a little bit better in organic. What do we got here? The costs, they're saying about the same, which is quite interesting. Ecosystem services, so definitely a lot better with the organic serving the ecosystem. Employment of workers, a little bit more labor intensive is organic. Reducing worker exposure to pesticide was a lot better in organic, I should say. And yeah, so it was better basically everywhere, maybe except for the yield. But like I said, I think over the long term, that could potentially be debatable as well. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the price, which is, it all sounds pretty good and most people are all for it, but the price, and I'm just going to be upfront and honest, it can be more expensive. So what I'd encourage you to just think about or take away from this talk is, where you put your money is where you put your energy. It's where you want the world to be. So I've put a quote here called, every time you spend money, you're casting a vote for the kind of world you want. So if you give your money to organic food, whether it be the local shop or organic farmers, you're really going to help grow that industry. Okay. And in my personal view, it's probably better for your health and better for the environment. Now, for me, organic food's probably second on my list behind rent. Some people don't have organic food as that higher priority. That's completely your choice. It can be a little bit of a commitment, but we'll go through some price comparisons anyway. Okay, so with plant-based, so we've got, I've just pulled out some fruits and I've pulled out some veggies. So oranges, and this is like, I did this within the last week. Okay, so I just sort of went around to different shops and checked it out. So oranges, only a slight difference between conventional and organic. Kiwi, a fair bit of difference. So, it can move around for fruits. Cucumber, which is actually technically a fruit, more expensive with organic. Interestingly, the pumpkin was actually cheaper with organic. So that does happen sometimes, especially for those starchy kind of fruits and vegetables. I actually find for whatever reason, they're generally not too far off the conventional price. Broccoli is more expensive and sweet potato just slightly more expensive. So like I said, the starchy kind of foods, generally a little bit closer to the conventional pricing. So yeah, it is a commitment, but it can be for a good cause. Now, if you sort of want to save a bit of money, this is Australian's Dirty Dozen version. Okay, so there's something called the Dirty Dozen you may see on different Instagram feeds or social media feeds. The Dirty Dozen is a Dirty Dozen from the US, and they actually update that every year. You could argue that it could apply to Australia, but there was some research done in 2008, so a while ago, that showed that these were the least sprayed foods. Okay. So, you're welcome to take a screenshot of that, but, it is a bit old, but that's the latest data we have actually in Australia that I could find. Okay. And then we've got, and it's a good point by Elena around health as well. So, yeah, so it's just about where you want to put your dollar. With animal food, it can be double in some areas, and it can be, you know, maybe about 1/3 more. So beef mince, lamb chops, whole chicken, around about double, and then beef rump, you know, maybe about 1/3 more. So then what do we do? Okay. So you can grow your own, okay? You can shop around. So there's different markets, different farmers markets, different shops have different prices. Different organic shops here in Brisbane have discount days. And Ray Organic, which is a shop I've been going to for around about a good sort of 7-8 years consistently. They're based in Mount Gravatt. They're offering a 10% discount to anyone for their next visit by the end of October. So if you'd like to take advantage of that, just text me and I'll add you on the list. Okay. Now, the other one I was going to mention is buying in bulk. So some butchers you can buy in bulk. It ends up being about $25 to $28 per kilogram, which is, when you go here conventional, you know, not too far off the conventional sort of side. Okay. And then you can get like a half cow or quarter cow for around about that price. Okay. So now, just to sort of let you know, I did promise tips to heal, so I'll go through this very quickly. So we spoke about the nutrition component today, where, you know, that's like a physical component, which can really help the healing process. There's a mental component to the healing process, where, you know, people may not feel worthy of good health, as an example. There's an emotional element to the healing process, where people, you know, may need assistance with managing their emotions. Then there's a spiritual side. So, you know, connection to ourself or relationship with the God or universe. So if it's ever of interest, I can assist with people with this. So the conditions I assist with are generally gut health, weight loss, mental health, skin and autoimmune conditions. And if you'd like to follow me, check out my links. And I'd love to open the floor to any questions. Hopefully you found that beneficial. And I'll open the floor. And thank you very much for attending. So in summary, basically what we had there was, hey, look, you know, what is organic food? It's quite a clean source of food. Then we spoke about the different nutrition quality. We spoke about the environmental impacts. We spoke about whether it's scalable. And then we looked at the different price comparisons as well. So does anyone have any questions at all? Feel free to open up. Don't be shy. I can't promise I know the answer either.
Hey Mark, it's Ebony. How are you?
Hey Ebony, you look a little bit different.
I do have a question. So
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, like, because I sort of flip between eating organic and then not. But if you wanted to like transition to eating it full time, but not like hitting the ground running with everything, would you recommend that meat is probably the most important thing to get organic to start with, or what's your view on what would be the best place to start?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I would start with what's a little bit easier. So organic eggs are really easy to get these days. They're in most supermarkets. So I'd start there. So go with organic eggs. And then if you wanted to go with the organic animal food, and then that sort of that dirty dozen with Australia that I showed you the list.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
That's probably the best way to go. I do get that question, and it does throw me sometimes to have to think about it, but that's what my answer is at the moment.
Yeah, cool. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks for the question. And I'll just read the comments. Thanks, Moni. I appreciate the encouragement. Thanks, Yelena.
Mark, I have a question, if I may.
Yes, Dominic.
Good talk, by the way. Very
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it.
I'm wondering about eating like with non-organic foods and the pesticides and fungicides and whatever else, if that is known to have an impact on someone's ability to sleep. Like, is sleep improved with organic food, and is there any research done on that? Because I know quite a few people that really struggle to sleep well, and I know that they're not on an organic. I haven't been on an organic diet for very long, so Yeah, I was wondering if you could speak to that at all.
Yeah, no, really good question. So, I'm not aware of any research as such, but I'll just make a casual link if that's okay. So, I'm not aware of any direct link, but I'll just sort of hypothesize. So, I showed pretty clearly that research is showing that organic food is higher in magnesium, and magnesium has been linked with improving people's sleep. So that's one thing. And then the second thing is when your body's battling toxins, it can flare up your nervous system. So the less toxins you have, the calmer your nervous system can be. So if it's flaring up your nervous system, it can actually throw off your sleep a little bit. So I could not count the amount of times people have improved their food quality and their sleep quality is improved out of sight. So yeah, I definitely think nutritional quality can help. Specifically organic, yeah, just reducing that toxin load and maybe increasing the magnesium intake in the organic food. Good question, man. Appreciate the question.
Are you able to send those slides out at some juncture to people after the?
Yeah, I can send them to you. I'll send them to you. No worries.
Yeah, I'd like to have a look at it. I thought I'd ask just while I have while I have it in the top of my mind. I went vegan a couple of years ago for about 6 months. I got quite unwell, but my body didn't handle it. But my reasoning behind doing so was environmental impact. So I thought if I'm eating, but I wasn't eating organic. And so from this seminar this evening, is it right for me to draw the inference that if you're eating a vegan diet purely for ethical reasons, then if you're not eating an organic vegan diet, then you're actually contributing more to the detriment of our environment than otherwise?
Yeah, it's a good question. So, it can be a bit of a polarizing topic. So I think when people choose vegan out of ethical reasons, I think it's an excellent intention. But, from what I've read, I personally think if you're buying conventionally farmed fruit and veg, I personally think this can harm the environment quite significantly, in all honesty. So, with the runoff of pesticides and fertilizers into our waterways and destroying our soils and going into our air, So yeah, I think if the intention is to really do it for ethical reasons, organic is miles better.
Thanks for that. That makes sense.
Yeah. So I'm just going to catch a couple of the comments. So Maria's asked a question around the certification. So sometimes there is debate as to the genuine certification fees. Yeah. There is. I may be naive, but I actually think Australia is pretty good. I think it's a lot more of an issue in the US. So the University of Michigan has actually done a chart of different certification bodies, and they're owned by just large corporations that have historically not cared about human health at all. So I get the sense it happens probably more in the US. The US is more flexible with what they call organic. Australia's a bit tighter. I actually know someone that went for the organic certification for his cows, and this is in he's living near Byron hinterland area. And the certifiers came into the farm. They said, "Do you spray your grass outside the front yard, like not near the farm?" And he said, "Yeah, I spray my grass." And they said, "No, you can't have it." So pretty tight. And as Joe said, Joe, who works at Ray Organics, said, yeah, Australia's certifying bodies are pretty strict. So maybe it's naivety, but I get the sense they're pretty good. Thanks for your comment, Jasmine. Appreciate it. Awesome. Good questions, guys.
I have a quick question. Sorry.
Sure, fire away.
You can hear me. Sorry, I had issues before with my internet, but I'm just on the phone. So where I live, there's not really any organic shops, so I have to either find a farmer's market or drive quite far away to get my organic food. I was just wondering, how at Woolies and Coles they have like the organic brand of like fruit and veg. Do you think that's actually organic?
Yeah, I'll bring up that screen again, and I'll show you the certification bodies I'd recommend. Is that okay?
That's fine, thank you.
You may not have seen it. Are we? Just quickly have a look. Yep. So just bear with me a sec. I'm just going to bring it up now. Okay, so take a screenshot of that sucker, Yelena.
Amazing, thank you.
And they're the ones I think you should look out for. They're all above board. You may have dropped out then. Cool. Thanks for the question. Appreciate it. I'll just quickly check the comments.
I actually have a question, Mark.
Yeah, Liam, fire away.
And it's about like weight loss and also weight stability, maybe. How much of a difference does just like removing like inorganic food, how much of an impact does that have on your weight loss? Like just going from chemical-free stuff. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So there's been what they call epidemiology studies linking organic food intake with weight loss. So epidemiology is kind of like trends, like they analyze trends. And they're like, hey, look, people who eat organic food tend to drop weight. Now there could be some biases in there because people that eat organic food may just be more health conscious, you know. So that may be that. How long will it take and so forth? Weight loss is a tricky ball game. You know, I can't give you the answer to that. It's reliant on nutrition quality for sure. I personally think organic would be better because it won't have any synthetic hormones, and you won't be dealing with any toxins. So the body, when the body eats toxins, it actually stores it as body fat because it doesn't want it to go through your organs. So it will store it in the body fat, rely on the appropriate nutrition to help detoxify it out when you're ready. So I personally think it does contribute to weight gain. How long that will take or how much weight you will lose, weight loss is a tricky ball game, man.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm just being honest. It's reliant on nutrition quality and exercise and stress. It's like stress, mental, emotional is massive.
Yeah, that's what I was sort of thinking was like it. I'm imagining that if you're eating toxins, it's putting stress on your body and your organs to try and filter it. So that's why I was wondering, like, eating cleaner, does it help reduce weight? Which it probably, makes sense, I guess.
Yeah. So like I said, studies have shown that it does. And I think it does. But then the overall picture weight loss can be a touch tricky.
Yeah, cool. Thanks, Mark.
My pleasure, man. Thanks for the question. Anyone else got any other questions? Good questions, by the way. Awesome. So, go, Chris. Far away.
I heard that the most sprayed food, rice, like white rice and corn and tomatoes, like canned tomatoes.
Yeah.
Have you come across that before? I know the tomatoes are on the dirty dozen. Have you heard of that before?
Yeah, it changes around. The thing with corn in the US anyway is that a lot of it's genetically modified. They modify it so it can actually take a lot of sprays. So they just spray the hell out of it. And that will just help reduce manpower. You don't have to tend to the crops as much. So definitely the corn, the tomatoes, that one can move around, but they are generally highly sprayed. The rice is sprayed. Now, rice is a bit of a tricky one because it's been shown to actually absorb heavy metals from the soil as well if the soil quality is off. So that's why getting organic rice is pretty good. And I can't remember the pricing because I haven't actually bought rice for a while, but it's not too bad from memory. So so you just gotta be wary of the heavy metal absorption. So cadmium is what it absorbs. I think it even absorbs arsenic. There's been traces of arsenic in rice as well.
What my gut just doesn't have issues now when I eat organic brown rice. Just instant change before it was giving me a lot of gluten.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Thanks for sharing. Yeah. So and pesticides have been shown to throw off the microbiome in the gut. That's been shown pretty conclusively. So yeah, that may be helping as well.
Yeah. Thanks to the person, I think Maria, I think said that Is that corn, fungal involved?
Corn is GMO contaminated with fungal mycotoxins. Yeah, okay, cool. So yeah, so like I said, yeah, the corn, especially in the US, is genetically modified. And they spray the hell out of it. And some of those products do make their way over here as well. Cool. Any other questions at all? Any other questions? Awesome. Well, I thank everyone for joining. I really do. I do appreciate it. I love sharing this kind of information. You know, it's a real pleasure, and I really hope you got something out of it. If you've got any questions at all, please feel free to reach out. I have recorded it, so if you'd like the recording, I'm happy to send it to you. And yeah, if you'd like any assistance with any kind of health challenges at all, definitely feel free to reach out. We can have a chat. And yeah, I appreciate all your time.
Thanks, Mark, for talking.
Yeah,
Have a good night.
Thanks, Mark.
Thanks,
Yeah,
guys.
you've got a good.
Thanks, Chris. Appreciate it.